Hi, I'm Paul.
And I'm Tiffany.
To some, we could be called career wizards.
And to others, sometimes we seem like therapists. However, we definitely are not.
But for you, we are the co-hosts of the Career Boosters podcast.
Being able to understand that it's not work-life balance anymore, it's work-life harmony. And we need to be able to harmonize all of the different parts of our lives to be able to navigate as whole human beings.
All right. Hello and welcome to the Career Boosters podcast, season 2, episode 31. I am going to start this way. In September of 2014, I had the chance to interview someone who is going to join the master's program office. I remember Jenna being kind, compassionate, driven, motivated, and really encouraged to help other people and have everyone feel like they have a voice at the table. Fast forward 10 plus years, Jenna has done some amazing things. She's now working for another post-secondary institution. We'll say the name later if maybe, we'll see. A master's degree in hand, looking after student wellness for thousands and thousands of students here in Edmonton. A proud moment, not only for myself as one of the first people to have interviewed Jenna here at the university, but I hope for her as well. And Jenna and I, we were chatting 6 months ago or so, and doing the professional networking thing. And I asked her if she wanted to be on a podcast. And there was an initial quick response to like, heck yeah, I want to be on a podcast. And then it was like, oh boy, I don't know what I'm going to talk about. And so here we are. We are ready to talk about not only her career, student wellness, and helping other people, but a cool part of her career that involves pole fitness, competitive pole dancing, and ownership of a studio, leadership, management, and how the studio is being run. Ultimately, when it comes down to leadership development, growth of business, I can't wait to hear about all of these cool things that Jenna's done. And she is such a unique and special individual to come and talk to us about this. I am so happy and so thrilled to have her. So, Jenna, I get to start with the first question. If you can tell us a little bit about your career story and how you've gotten to where you're at right now.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me,
Mhm.
Paul and Tiffany. I appreciate it. So I came to the University of Alberta as an international student for my Bachelor of Commerce from the United States. Please don't hold that against me. But and that transition was so much harder than I expected it to be because my perception of Canada was that it was exactly like the States, that it wasn't going to be a big transition, but it really was. And I struggled so hard in my first year in my bachelor's, and I really saw myself as a great student. And that just was not the case in my first year of my BCom. And it was the isolation and getting to know a new community. And I dove into student groups, and that's what saved me and saved my experience in my undergrad. And when I was interviewed by Paul, fun fact, I thought I had bombed it after I had graduated. The interview only took 15 minutes, and I was like, well, that was horrible. They hate me. And then they asked me back for a second interview, so that was good. And I had a 7-year career at the master's programs office in a few different roles. My biggest being in student engagement, and I was able to apply my passion for student groups and work with students one-on-one. And that's where really my passion for wellness also ignited as I saw how these students were trying to balance so many different things. And along the time that I started at the master's programs office, that's when I also started my pole career. And that really introduced an importance of balance as it took more and more of my time outside of my career. And from the MBA office, I went to Concordia University of Edmonton for about a year and a half. Through the power of networking, that's how I got that position. And then I pursued my passion for wellness now at MacEwan University, where I get to work as the manager of student wellness services.
I think I can share a similar fun fact. So now with the three of us, both you and I have been interviewed by Paul. And I'm not sure if I had I bombed it, but I had very much wow, I can't read him, which is a funny thing if you happen to know Paul. So I don't know, for anybody out there that ever might be interviewed by the tens of people listening, I don't know. FYI, in an interview, Paul's hard to read. Just maybe that's the learning here.
Hmm.
I really appreciate actually the little nugget that was in there that I heard loud and clear on that how people show up has a lot to do with context. And how often do we, whether we're talking employees or even just friends, we assume how people show up is due to them as a like a core part of their person. But you just talked about experiencing a different context and that changed how you were experiencing life and probably how you showed up and how much we really just need to be curious with people to then figure out what is their context right now and how is that impacting them. I just wanted to highlight that. That was a really a kind of interesting way to hear that from your experience
Hmm.
and the link to wellness. So tell us a little bit more about it. Very clear that it's a passion of yours, and I think it's a brilliant space from an educational perspective. But tell us more about what you get to do in your role.
Yeah, for sure. So I got my master's in ed policy while I worked at the U of A. And then I also, at the same time, got my wellness counseling certificate from Cornell. And that really allowed me to focus on this niche of wellness. And there are, depending on which dimension profile you use, there are 6 to 8 dimensions of wellness. And they have all of these different contexts around occupational, educational, mental, physical, and everybody has their own definition of wellness and what that looks like for them. And I was really fortunate in my master's to be able to focus on student generational motivator trends in my thesis. And this focus on well-being has become such a theme for the students of today. And being able to understand that it's not work-life balance anymore, it's work-life harmony. And we need to be able to harmonize all of the different parts of our lives to be able to navigate as whole human beings. And it's really important for post-secondary institutions to highlight that so that they're able to support students not only as they endeavor on their careers, but also as participants in their community and engaged alumni, honestly, because that's what creates a good brand for a post-secondary institution is that this place cared about me as a whole person. And so I've been able to take that passion and really implement it in the position that I'm in now. I work with a few different groups, but honestly, I get to work on committees and put other people at the table at what they're passionate about. And it's very important for me to understand my staff and what they care about and what their dimensions of wellness are so I can put them at the tables that they care about. So I use it both with students, but also with my staff.
Can I just get you to expand on something that I think is a different way of looking at this? So work-life balance, there's starting to be a
Mhm.
lot more out there languaging that that's actually crap, excuse me, that there is no balance
Mhm.
is 50-50. We don't do 50-50 work-life like ever. I have seen
Mhm.
work-life integration being a way to frame that, but this work-life harmony, can you just tell us how you see those differences? Because I think this
Mhm.
shift is really important right now.
Absolutely. So I see work-life balance as I have two different people. I have my external self that has passions and cares and priorities, and I have my work self. And that's just not reality, especially in the world that we live as our work is hybrid and as we're experiencing things as parents and lifelong learners, and it's just not realistic. And I've been reflecting on this even as I prepare for competition because as a pole dancer, my priorities shift over time. Right now, I'm so focused on these routines and it's these moves only, where during the regular training season, I'm more focused on making sure that I'm expanding my knowledge in the space. And so I think what work-life harmony does is it acknowledges that our priorities ebb and flow as the different dimensions of our lives ebb and flow. And so as our priorities change and shift throughout even the academic calendar for those of us that work in post-secondary, our priorities shift. It's important for us to be able to be flexible and make space so that we can continue to be balanced and care for not only ourselves, but for others.
You know, Jenna, I am going to just clip that and we are going to share that with as many people as humanly possible because that literally is That's so well said. We
Thank you so much.
constantly, yeah, we talk about this all the time with students. It's like, the process of an MBA student. They go through,
Hmm.
oh, I should be applying for internships in like month 2 of my MBA, and Tiffany and I literally are like, can you just get through the first semester without crying like every day, all day long? Like, how can you just provide yourself the space you need and then don't worry? Like, the internship stuff will figure itself out. Like it is what it is. And so, it's so beautifully put that it's just like this, work-life harmony. And I love that. I think that's really beautiful.
Thank you.
So tell us about this master's degree in education.
Mhm.
What were some of your major takeaways from that experience, and how has having a master's degree kind of helped you in your roles?
Absolutely. So my master's is in educational policy studies in educational administration and leadership. It's such a long title. And so at that time, my interaction with graduate studies was with the MBA program. And at that time, I had helped deliver our cost recovery programs. And so I was pretty well informed, I thought, about how graduate courses are provided. But a master's in educational policy studies is way different than an MBA. And it's not these very defined topics of things like finance, strategic management. It's all about discussion. So there's these bigger, kind of broader topics, and there are readings that go with that topic, but each class is all discussion based, and it's all about stories and hearing how people interact with the content. And I learned so much about how it was okay to say, this was dense for me. This was difficult for me to read, or this was emotional for me because of my experience in XYZ. And it was a wonderful space of creating safe and caring storytelling situations where we were able to learn from each other. And it was people from K to 12 and post-secondary, which was also fantastic to hear about that flow and talk to each other about what are we seeing in students as they transition. I use my master's every day. It is in policy studies, so I do interact with policy almost every day, and hopefully moving the needle on some of it and procedures. I would say one of the biggest things is that I was encouraged to move into a thesis-based master's program. I was originally in course-based because I do eventually intend on doing my doctorate, and so that was encouraged. And I was at the final legs. I was ready to defend, and I was sort of abandoned by my advisor and needed to scramble because I had no idea. And I just put as many feelers out and asked as many people as I could to help me. And shout out to Micah True from FDSR. I don't even know if it's called FDSR anymore, but helped me find an advisor who was like, I care about you. I care about you having a good experience. Let's turn this around. She wasn't even in my faculty. And she just helped me through the defense process. And though it did throw me off a little bit, it taught me a lot about coming up with a product that I'm still proud of, even though I had a hiccup, even though there was a bump in the road. And then there were people out there, even though I was met with boundary after boundary or wall after wall, there were people out there that genuinely cared about my experience.
That scramble that you talk about, and you just talked about a learning from that scramble. What skill sets did that offer you, and how do you think that that has then kind of shaped where you are today?
Yeah. One thing is grit. I think that we're, Paul's laughing because I gave him a book about grit. Um, I think that in moments like that, that is where our grit grows exponentially, and we are able to find ways to move past these situations. And also, it absolutely helps me in supporting students that are facing these detrimental situations that are sometimes out of their control. And it allows me to support them in navigating, okay, we tried these people, let's put some feelers out farther, right? Because FGSR, that's an external support to graduate studies. It's not within your own department. And they were the ones that really helped me. So it's about really expanding where we're looking for resources. And that has definitely supported the way in which I navigate policy for students now and how we support them going forward.
I love the saying that we are best set up to support the person that we once were. And so, how impactful you can be, like you just mentioned, to students who are kind of experiencing perhaps some similar. I also just want to highlight you talked about safe and caring storytelling. And I really appreciate the like few layers down that it can be. I'm not going to say easy, but it can be easier to figure out how to tell a fun story. But how do we tell stories that aren't seemingly perhaps fun or are tricky or are challenging, and to have a space to be able to grow that skill set? I think is a bit rare, perhaps. Paul at the top talked about when you guys chatted about, being a podcast guest and this thought of what do I even want to talk about? And that you came up with something kind of a bit unique. And you've mentioned your pole fitness career throughout some of
Mm-hmm.
this and some of the learnings. How did you come up with maybe what to chat with us about today?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it took me a little bit to think about it, but wellness is really my niche. That's what I find as my biggest passion post-secondary. And I care deeply about success of not only students, but my staff and how they're positioned in their wellness. And pole fitness really took the place of student groups for me because student groups were so integral in making sure that I was balanced and that I had a community who cared about me and was invested in my success and created those spaces for safe storytelling for me in my undergrad. And so pole is not just a hobby for me. I am now a co-owner of our studio. I'm a coach, I'm an instructor, I'm also a learner at heart. And it does take up a lot of time. And I think it's important to be able to talk about how these things stay balanced because I do have a full-time job. I am a co-owner of a studio. I'm a mom of two, right? I am interested in getting more education, a lifelong learner, and it can be done. And that's one of the questions that I get all the time is how do you do it? How do you balance all these things? And it really comes down to the ebb and flow of sometimes things take priority and sometimes they don't.
Mm-hmm.
And understanding to my core what is important to me
Mm-hmm.
is really how I navigate being able to do everything because I've had so many wonderful female mentors who have said it can be done. You can do it all.
Mm-hmm.
And I truly feel like being able to share that message of it can be done. You
Mm-hmm.
can make space for the things that you're passionate about, and it
Mm-hmm.
doesn't have to be taxing. You just have to know how to balance your dimensions of wellness is really important.
Mm-hmm. Well, and it sounds like, you have the foundational pieces, like the technical knowledge of how to balance these things, but you're putting them into practice. And you talked about these like ebbs and flows of how these all
Mhm.
manage. And it's sometimes like navigating the ebbs and flows and the prioritization of things has to be hard sometimes, but it also has to be very rewarding when you can see how much you've accomplished, right? Like listen to all the stuff that you've done. It's so cool to say, mom of two,
Mhm.
owner of a studio. Guess what? You have competitions coming up. That's crazy. And it's
Mhm.
like, it's just adding one more little layer to things. So you have some major pole competitions coming up in June. What are those like and how do you prepare for them?
They're wild. They are
I
absolutely wild.
can only imagine. Yeah.
So there are a few different types of pole competitions. And so the one that I'm preparing for is called Pole Theatre Canada. It's an international competition, and people come from all over the world to participate in pole theater in different countries. I think last year we had Germany, France, we've had Mexico, US, we've all over. And so preparing takes months. And one really important thing about competing, and I would say in your career as well, is knowing what you're doing it for and what the ask is, right? It's just like preparing for an interview. I do my research on what are the rubrics, what is the category I'm in, what are the judges looking for, because it's all different from business to business and from judge to judge and from competition to competition. And for this particular competition, you have to apply to get in. So they take the top few applicants. And so by the time that you know that you're in, if you're in, then you know that you've kind of already won, right? It's a really enjoyable experience to be able to say I've been selected, which is awesome in itself. And last year I competed in my first year in professional and professional classique and won my category, which is very exciting. And so this year I'm competing in professional drama and comedy, which so apparently just a glutton for punishment, competing twice on one day. And so preparation starts in January, and I'm so lucky to have a partner who is competing in semi-professional the night before. So we've been training every week together, and this particular competition is about telling a story, which also is so much connected to career development and making sure that you have clear stories and concise, and that you are able to articulate that without saying a word on stage, right? You have music, you have a backdrop, you have lighting, you have props, and that's it. And you have to be able to tell a story from top to bottom, and that's part of the judging criteria. And so it really is about balancing not only getting to the studio, training, running your routines, making sure you're highlighting your skills, but it's also about making sure that you're resting, and you have to integrate that rest and the relaxation and the recoup and the recovery and the massages and the physio all into your training routine, and make sure you're feeling your body correctly and creating that balance as you prepare for what is a whirlwind of a weekend, a family reunion of people from all across Canada and all across the world who don't see each other until they compete again the next year.
Wow. I love that you are able to tell stories with no words. And I actually think that Paul, there's lots Paul and I could take from this because the crossovers of this is really, really clear, but the skill set of storytelling without words. Like I think it sounds like an oxymoron, but I actually think that that's a masterful way to actually work on storytelling is to be able to tell it without words. How do you even convey and can you understand it? So I really appreciate that that shows up there. What took you from this love of learning, mastering your craft to owning and teaching? Where was that shift for you?
Hmm. I would say a mentor again. Mentors have been absolutely integral in both my career and my training. I had not even thought about teaching until Lauren, the owner of Embrace Polar and Fitness and founder, said, I'd love for you to teach. And I was like, oh, that really hadn't been on my radar. And as she opened her studio and took me under her wing, I grew from an apprentice instructor to a senior instructor. I'm like, I'm teaching our highest levels. What happened? Where did the years go? That's wild. And it's all about making space for not only learning from other people, but taking time to know where my pitfalls are and where the strengths are of my other instructors. And we really fill in the gap for each other. And pole is such a beautiful art form in that there is never going to be one person who is the best, because you can't be the most artistic, the most flexible, the most have the most wonderful musicality. You can't also be the strongest. There's just no way that you can be all of the things and be the best at it. And so it creates space for everybody to have their own niche and their own ability to contribute in this community. And as my life has grown and as I've gotten more involved in the studio, I and Lauren's life has changed and she is now a mom. I just said, I'm in it. Like, I am in it for the long haul, and I want to be in it to support you as much, if not more, than I have been. And that's when I became partner in the studio. And we really complement each other in terms of our skill sets and what our focuses are. And how we view the values of our studio and how we move
Mhm.
forward.
So nice to find partnerships that you can really like rely upon and trust and just
Hmm.
enjoy the whole process of going through the ups and downs, or in Jenna's words, the ebbs and flows of what life throws at you, and just having people to kind of support you through that all is, we talk about emotional intelligence and the value of connections and relationships, but truly like our interpersonal relationships, the ones that mean the most to us are ones of ebbs and flows just of themselves, right? And I think it's a beautiful place that you found to, you know, love what you guys do, contribute to community, but at the same time, just like have a lot of fun doing it at the same time, which is so cool. Jenna, what's the most valuable lessons you've learned from your career so far?
Mm. I would say that one is that your wellness is your own, and that what other people's balance and wellness looks like for them is not what will copy paste be right for you. And taking time for introspection and understanding around what that looks like for you will allow you to do it all and do everything that you want to be able to do. Um, I would also say that the best mentors are the ones that aren't intimidated by you saying, I'm gunning for your job. And I want to do what you do. And they're the ones that really step into the mentorship role and create space for you to learn.
Mm. Lovely life lessons. And I think there's a lot that we could continue to chat about. It's a fascinating conversation, and your experience and integration with it in so many different areas is, but we only have so long. So I think we're ready for a lightning round. Are you ready?
Sure.
Awesome. All right, three quick questions, three gut answers. What part of your career story has given you the biggest boost?
Mentors, absolutely.
Mm. What do you wish you'd learned sooner?
That leadership isn't about having the right answers, it's about asking the right questions.
Mm. And service is so important to Paul and I, and so we love to end off chatting about how is service going to show up for you in the coming week.
This weekend, I am very excited. I get to coach multiple people in burlesque and competing and all over the place. So I'm coaching all weekend.
Very cool. All right, Paul, you're up. Paul's random question.
Jenna, I'm not stumped usually about what to ask, and now I feel we went through such cool questions and we learned so many cool things about you. The one thing I remember though is Jenna loves animals. Jenna loves dogs, loves the companionship of our four-legged furry friends. What is it about animals that you connect with so much?
Animals don't care what your day has been like, how you showed up at work, how you are feeling. They just want to be with you and they want to be close to you. And they are honestly, an integral part of my wellness and my well-being. I have two dogs. I work with animal assisted events. And as you know, I did that at the U of A as well and brought dogs to campus. And honestly, it's about there is no judgment and they genuinely just care about being with you no matter who you are.
Aw, I love that. I'm blessed to have a cat who offers that, which is I appreciate is not every cat, but I get that from a cat, so I can certainly identify. Jenna, there has been a few full circle moments, and I actually want to circle back to one, pun intended, when you mentioned the grit book. And that was an interesting insight for me because it's something that Paul talks about a lot. He talks about
Mhm.
the book. We talk about it in class. We talk about Angela Duckworth, but I love that we connected back with you were the one that gave him the book. And I
Mhm.
love how life works in full circles. I love how life ebbs and flows. And I really appreciate a lot about this conversation, but your ability to demonstrate what we talk about all the time, which is how do you understand yourself in such a deep way that you become sticky for other people? That when you
Mhm.
speak, what you say is memorable. When you show up authentically. And you have done just that. You and I met the 46 minutes ago, and this conversation is memorable to me. I will remember a lot of what you have said, and so I appreciate that you have owned your uniqueness and your journey, and have found a way to like make your ripples supersonic, like just fan them so that they are able to make impacts in kind of every area of your life. So thank you for sharing with that with us.
Thank you so much. I really value essence. I'm going to let people look that up if they don't know what it is. But that's definitely at a core of what I do and how I navigate.
Well, thank you for bringing and sharing it with us today.
Thank you so much for having me. I had a wonderful time.
Good. All right. It's funny. I think Paul and I probably underlined and circled the same key takeaway that we both want to chat about. So we're going to expand. But as you can see behind me, there's a treble clef. And so when she has a point in mirror, that one, when she talked about harmony, there was certainly a part of me that just perked up for many reasons. This work-life balance thing, it doesn't work the way that we've talked about it for so long. So I loved her version of harmony. And where my brain took it was when you listen to music, harmonies change. And she talked about the ebb and the flow. And so as we listen to music and as notes change, the harmony has to change along with it. And so it talks about flexibility and adaptability and the understanding that as your like the music of life is playing, as there's like weird notes that get thrown in, that's okay. There's a harmony for that note. Any note on any key you find has a harmony pair for it. And can you lean into that and understand that if even you weren't expecting that note, there's like a way to harmonize with it. Anyway, that was my music soul picked up on that one, which I thought was really cool.
Yeah. I also loved when she talked about work-life harmony. I think that's really cool, really interesting. But the one that really stood out to me, so Jenna did give me the book called Grit by Angela Duckworth. It was around the time that she was, exiting the U of A, and we both have such a passion for helping people and helping students. But I think we both identify an area that students can continue to grow in, and it is demonstrating resilience, grit, passion, perseverance, all of those kinds of things. And she made a statement of like where grit grows. And it is something that grows. It is something that we get better at. And it is something that sometimes we have to be slapped in the face by a few things to be realizing that we like got to pick ourselves up and dust ourselves off and off we go again, right? We're in a tough economy. Students are trying to get jobs, and if you get knocked down and stay in the dirt, you're just going to be dirty for the next interview. So it's about dusting yourself off, being resilient, and moving forward. And that to me just really speaks volumes about 2025 and being resilient and showing and demonstrating grit.
I love that. Grit and resilience never ever feel gritty and resilient in the moment.
No.
But that's when you're growing it. Cool.
Yeah.
So we have moved to about every 2-ish weeks now. We're doing podcasts in the summer before we take a break. So you will see us again in 2 weeks. Catch you later. Thanks for tuning in to the Career Boosters podcast. We hope you had a blast. Yeah, we know that's corny. Catch you next time, and remember to subscribe wherever you enjoy podcasts.